Donald Trump has once again been sworn in as the President of the United States of America. Uh, just after noon Eastern Time today, President Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. And joining me, as always, my chief political correspondent here on the Passive Income and Political Podcast. Sammy, what are your thoughts on Trump, on Trump's inauguration today, and how the day unfolded as a whole?
Well, I'm still, thanks, Dave. I'm still getting over the fact that Donald Trump is the 47th president, but he actually took part in the 60th inauguration.
Yeah, took you a minute to
It
figure that one out.
was a head scratcher for a second, but yeah, what a morning and afternoon it has been. A lot of pomp, a lot of ceremony. Uh, Even I think overblown a little bit more, given the significance of this particular inauguration.
Right.
Um, Donald Trump, the inauguration was extremely Christian based.
There was
Really,
a lot of praying.
a lot of praying and extremely partisan. Extremely partisan.
Yeah.
I, I think I said out loud at one moment when we were together this morning. I said, "Oh, come on, Don, be a better winner. You already won.
Right.
Um, very very partisan uh, inauguration speech. Shots all over the place, all over Biden, all over Harris, and then the follow up post inauguration speech went right off
Right
the
off the
rails.
rails.
Um, and uh, and then I actually turned it off when they were having lunch because I just couldn't watch any more of it.
Right.
But it looks like Canada, in the Coles notes version for Canadians, I guess would be stay the course. We looks like we can breathe on day one here anyway. But as
The
Premier
tariffs are
Ford,
on hold.
as Premier Ford has said, don't let our guards down, and he has 4 years to implement this. Right,
Right.
so let's, uh, for lack of a better word, and I'm paraphrasing, let's just govern ourselves accordingly here and
Right.
celebrate celebrate the change that the American people have asked for.
Exactly. And just to add to your point about the pomp and circumstance and all the
Oh,
celebration from today and earlier today, even last night, there was like an election style rally, like a campaign rally type thing that he had going on. So like sort of, the celebration kind of began last night with that. And then yeah, all through today, like the actual swearing in ceremony was like about a minute long, right? Of like, yes, I swear to do this. And obviously I don't know all the words, but it was pretty quick. And then, by 12:01 or 12:02 Eastern time, Donald Trump is officially once again the president of the United States. Um, and then just to sort of continue on your point, yes, it does look like Canada has sort of, for the time being, escaped unscathed as of right now in regards to tariffs. And Danielle Smith, I'm going to pull up a post from here shortly. Um, but I guess just to add to sort of what you said about Premier Ford, just sort of like let's stay the course, but let's work together. So um, go ahead and throw out a few more thoughts while I get this post from Danielle Smith that I want to kind of share with everyone.
okay. Well, yeah, Danielle Smith. Funny you're bringing Danielle up. Uh, I heard she was on the CBC as they are covering the inauguration, and she put it very bluntly. in terms of explaining her case. I mean, she's been somewhat villainized across the country for going against the grain. And her explanation for me really cleared it up, short and sweet, where she said something along the lines of like, I would never tell Ontario that how that they couldn't protect their auto industry. I'd never tell anyone in British Columbia they couldn't protect their lumber industry. So I was a little bit upset that I was being asked not to protect our Alberta's oil industry, and that to me
makes a lot
I
of sense,
guess,
right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It isn't it funny that anyway. It looks like you got what you needed up here, Dave.
Yeah, so this was a post about an hour ago from Ms. Danielle Smith. And basically, as you can see here, full statement, Alberta welcomes U.S. tariff reprieve and calls for strategic action. So Alberta is pleased to see that today President Donald Trump has decided to refrain from imposing tariffs on Canadian goods at this time as they study the issue further. We appreciate the implied acknowledgement that this is a complex and delicate issue with serious implications for American and Canadian workers, businesses, and consumers, given the integration of our markets along with our critical energy and security partnership. Avoiding tariffs will save hundreds of thousands of Canadian and American jobs across every sector. As an example, declining to impose U.S. tariffs on Canadian energy will preserve the viability of dozens of U.S. refineries and facilities that upgrade Alberta crude and the tens of thousands of Americans employed by them. Despite the promising news today, the threat of U.S. tariffs is still very real. As a country, we need to immediately take the following steps to preserve and strengthen our economic and security partnership with the United States and to avoid further imposition of tariffs. So, number one, focus on diplomacy and refrain from further talk of retaliatory measures. Number two, negotiate ways to increase what Canadians and Americans buy from one another. Number three, double down on border security. I think that's a major one. Number four, announce a major acceleration of Canada's 2% of GDP NATO target. Number five, crack down on immigration. Again, that's, and number six, immediately repeal all federal anti-energy policies, production caps, and fast track Northern Gateway and Energy East projects pre-approvals. So yeah, you can find this post on X, and yeah, that was Danielle's sort of summary of, and
yeah,
I think she nailed it on the head with quite a few of those points. Obviously, I didn't read the full paragraphs. I just sort of read the first sentence of each to give you an idea of what was the body of the paragraph. Cracking down on immigration, that does seem to be a major point that we definitely need to. And I think I don't border security wasn't really in there, but obviously, okay, that was actually today one of Trump's announcements was not the Canadian border, but the U.S.'s southern border with Mexico, declaring a national emergency, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Sammy?
Yeah, absolutely. He mentioned that right off the hop. And he also had worded in there a National Day of Liberty. I don't know what, like I said, there were a few things that happened today that I'm almost waiting. I'm waiting for the news stories tonight. I swear, I'm pretty sure he roasted a governor and it was happening, and he didn't realize he was standing right in front of him in the crowd. And then he spent the whole speech kind of backtracking on this statement. So
I wasn't paying as close attention to it as you were because I was focusing on a few other things at the same time. And the way he wrote, I thought it was Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, that he roasted, but maybe it wasn't because he wouldn't have backtracked on that. He would have just doubled down.
I think it was Texas.
Okay.
Okay. But the one I guess on the with the anyone who knows me knows I'm way more interested in the human element. It did interest me. It caught my attention when he was talking and him saying being Donald Trump. He was going back and forth between being serious and I'm being wild. He started to have a little bit of fun with it. But then his whole demeanor changed when speaking about Melania, right? And
Yes.
suddenly he wasn't that guy. For 2 seconds, he wasn't that guy. He was a man looking at his wife with absolute admiration and respect. At least that's what I saw. And so, Melania, if you ever see this, we we need you. It was nice to see for sure.
And just for the record, Sammy being the only chief political correspondent that will do a Trump impersonation
Yeah, right.
in the middle of
That was just I was just getting warmed up.
Nice. So I guess going forward, what do we foresee? I mean, we've kind of already touched on the Canadian tariffs or Canada not facing tariffs right off the hop. Now, he did mention in his speech about tariffs being imposed, referring to the External Revenue Service. And God, please, I pray to God that one of his advisors explains to him how tariffs work, because the country that you're buying from does not pay the tariff. The importing business pays the tariff. So that means, if a company in Montana is buying something at Alberta, they pull up to that Coots border crossing, and that American business in Montana then has to shell out that 25% extra, and that obviously gets passed directly down to the consumer. Sorry, I went on a rant there on tariffs. You know how I tend to do that when it comes to tariffs, but I was actually trying to ask you what else you might see or foresee over the course of this next 4 years.
I don't what I see is unpredictability. And what I see is uncertainty. And see the Donald Trump's approval ratings and his will never be as high as they are right now, right? So if I was advising him, I would say to him, Donald, you have to get as much as you can done as quickly as possible before the resistance comes, and it will come.
Right.
It's coming, right? So you're only in for one term. You have to act fast, and and I think that's exactly what's happening. People forget the power of that office. I mean, with a stroke of a pen, forever, the flag will fly at full mast on inauguration day. And that was one of the first things he signed.
Right.
He is looking to be that president, right? He's really looking to establish a legacy that people will never forget.
Yeah.
Right.
You made a great point there about his popularity will never be this high again. And we were talking earlier today before we went live about, here in Canada, Pierre Poilievre is going to win the next election. It's going to be a landslide, but there's not going to be people traveling from all over the country to see his swearing in, right?
No.
Whereas in the US, you have all of these MAGA supporters, which, and excuse me for using the term cult, but it is very much cult-like behavior, right? And we just would never see that here in Canada. It's not, it's not in our, it's not in our culture at all to go that, you know, that all in, to use a poker term, to go all in on a political candidate is like, okay, we're just, and you made a great point too when we were talking earlier before we went live about is going to win in a landslide, but give him 6 or 8 years and he's going to be just as hated as Justin Trudeau is right now, right? Like that's just the way it works.
Yeah, like it's funny, like Dave. I think if you look at the whole events of the day and the way that it was covered, and nothing short of a royal event, right? And it gets one to thinking about how important one's image is to the United States in the fabric of who they are, but in particularly Donald Trump, right? And I think of other countries or other people in other countries far away watching events like we've seen in recent weeks. I mean, if the coverage of the Jimmy Carter funeral was absolutely spectacular. The choirs, the cathedral, the beautiful people in the audience, the sermons themselves, nothing short of beautiful. And then it moves into this today
event, yeah,
and all these people from and the same kind of production. It's a production, right?
Right, it's a spectacle
to create an image, right? And boy, let me tell you, if you go down to Cuba and you see the way that they live down there, and also at the same time get these feeds of events like this, they think this is they think this is life in the United States,
right?
And it's a 100% production.
Yeah, because obviously you and I know people in Cuba wouldn't know. They've never been to the United States, but like we cross the border and it's just day-to-day normal living, people just going about their lives, getting up and going to work in the morning and going grocery shopping and doing people's stuff all day every day. It's the average American doesn't live like that.
Yeah, people like in other countries and my, even maybe growing up in Canada until we started really going over there a lot, what you see is television like this, like we're seeing today, and you're seeing stuff like Times Square, New Year's Eve, and oh my goodness, isn't the United States, they are it's the greatest place in the world, who wouldn't want to be a part of it? But so they carefully through the media craft their image, right? And it's completely incorrect. It's not really what's going on.
Right.
People struggle.
It is somewhat correct. Like the life imitating art imitating life analogy. But, to my point, it's like, it's not the way the average American lives their day-to-day life. Like you said, it's, New Year's Eve, Times Square. That's, that's not, the other 364 days are not like that at all.
No, exactly. And not to take away from that, it is a wonderful country. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Like beautiful. We've been talking. I don't want to get off track because we're talking here about Trump taking charge, but really, I really want to go through the Midwest and right down the center of the United States. Yeah. I think it would be wonderful. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I would love to. There's a lot of states I've never visited that would definitely be on my bucket list as well. Actually, Colorado is high up there for the mountains, as you can probably guess. Okay, yeah, getting back to Trump and some of the things that he proclaimed to do on day one, and now he's been president for about 3.5 hours, a little more than 4.5 hours. And I guess Panama Canal was sort of high on the list, saying that the Panama Canal is controlled by the Chinese, which is not totally incorrect, but not totally correct. So the way Trump says it implies that it is controlled by the Chinese government. The ports on either end of the Panama Canal are controlled by I believe it's a Hong Kong based company. So are there ties to China? Yes. Is it controlled by the Chinese government? Not directly. Does any business that is Chinese based have ties to the Chinese government? Probably yes. So, anyways, thoughts on the Panama Canal? And before you answer that or give me your thoughts on that, I just wanted to quote Ronald Reagan as well. Ronald Reagan said about the Panama Canal, "We built it, we paid for it, it's ours." And so, and obviously, okay, I'm not sure if you know any more of the history, but the Panama Canal was controlled by the Americans, by the U.S. up until 1999 when it was relinquished to Panama. And basically, Trump is now saying, "Well, we're taking it back." Okay, I'm sorry, I started to ramble there again. I'll let you jump in and give me your thoughts on the Panama Canal and Trump's intentions with it.
Well, I'd have to understand more about what the Hong Kong company operating on either side.
Right.
And give me the definition of control. Like, what does it mean? What do they mean when they say a Hong Kong company controls access to the Panama Canal? What does that mean? Are we talking security guards, or are we talking full blown, like, good old days of fact checking is back?
Yeah.
Mountain Finance.
Oh, we got it. Mountain Finance. Hey, Candace, I haven't seen you in forever. The good old days of fact checking is back.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining, Candace. Let us know your thoughts in the chat on any topic related to Trump and Trump's presidency. We're here to discuss all of it. We're just happen to be on the topic of the Panama Canal right now.
And we're happy that Canada is not the topic, not the top topic on day
Right.
one, January 20th. Thank you, Donald. We're aware here of the consequences of tariffs on our country, and yes, let's be honest. We'll say it's only going to hurt America. It's only going to hurt America, of course, right? But it's not going to be good for Canada at all.
No. Tariffs, like you've heard me say it a million times, nobody wins when Canada and the US get into a trade war. It's a lose-lose for both sides. So I don't know why the topic ever even comes up. It's beyond me.
Well, it's ongoing, but I just really am. Also, if I could talk more about just the earlier events of the day, the whole Trump family presented themselves as 100% representing the Trump brand. They looked spectacular. Barron seemed to be working every room that he was in. I saw him actually approach Joe Biden and very in a courteous way, respectfully, kind of bowed, shook his hand, and said something was said. I tried to catch as many short, brief Trump interactions that he was having with those around him. I did see Elon, standing patiently, in that room, just with that look on his face, just looking around with that grin on his, ignoring everyone kind of thing. But really, as I was getting kind of tired of the whole political situation because it's been so heavy lately, but I think the next couple days there's going to be some really good stuff to comment on. It's a huge day for the United States, and for those of us who are listening, if you've ever been accused of something that didn't do, or if you've been vindicated in any way, the feeling that comes along with that. You just imagine where Donald Trump is at right
Feeling
now.
quite vindicated.
Right. Oh yes, absolutely. They tried everything,
Yeah.
right? And here he is. So whether you love Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, it is one of the most spectacular victories I have ever
Yeah,
witnessed
politically, right?
in my
Like,
life. Oh, of any
yeah.
kind. No, across all genres. Wouldn't you have to rank this as being
It would be,
special
yeah,
at
pretty
the
high
very
up there. I'd
least?
have to, like, think back through other sports championships or
Yeah.
something, but yeah.
Sorry, but the 96 Masters doesn't really.
The 86 Masters.
The 86 Masters, yeah.
Oh, Elon was like a kid opening a Christmas present when Trump mentioned the US flag on Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't actually see. I heard him say that, but I wasn't watching at the time. I was just had it listening in the background, but I can only imagine um, how much Elon would have loved to have hear that.
And what's Steve Bannon doing today?
Well, oh, that's a whole other can of worms now, isn't it? Steve Bannon has been doing the podcast circuit, basically calling Elon Musk evil and basically calling him the Antichrist, and I think the words I've used are quite tame in comparison to what he has said. So
And you should hear him talk about Zuckerberg.
yeah,
It's even
he
worse.
probably doesn't have very many nice words for Bezos or any of them, to be quite honest.
Yeah, he was just saying that Mark. Where Zuckerberg has lost credibility is the length of time it took him to come to the table, and the difference between Zuckerberg and Musk is that it just seems like Zuckerberg is a much more kiss the ring kind of scenario.
Yeah,
right?
Elon definitely
You know,
he's he's his own guy, right? Like yeah, I have more respect for Elon than I do for Zuckerberg for sure, right? Like, even
oh
there a
yeah.
week or so
Well,
ago, we were listening to Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Zuckerberg basically said, "Yeah, X got," and the fact checking on Facebook and Meta was lacking. So
yeah. No, I think, and I got to say also today, I know I commented on how Donald Trump's demeanor would change when he would speak directly to Melania, but Melania herself was really portraying herself uh, extremely well. I don't know what it was, whether she looked good, she looked she looked sharp, she looked authentic. She at times looked almost sad, and at times looked elated. So apparently, her feet were heels that she was wearing. Donald had mentioned something to her like, "Are you going to be okay, Melania? Like, can you continue?" And her response to him was, "Donald, we will continue." Right.
yeah,
So
she's
she's
there.
really, I think, right out of the gates trying to portray herself as a supportive first lady. Right. She's been there through some pretty rough days. Right.
Right.
So let's not be too hard on Melania this time around. She had a rough go the first term,
Yeah.
right? The liberals called her everything from stupid to underprivileged mail order bride.
Right.
Right? I'm not saying that, but
No. Yeah.
so good on her coming from where she came from. Not she, you know, she is where she is now,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Good for her. Good for her.
yeah, but you're right. Panama Canal and Greenland was still all over the table today. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to be done by the end of today. It's only it's Tuesday here, so
Monday,
it's gonna
isn't it? Today's
it's gonna
Monday.
it's Monday. Sorry, it's gonna be an uncomfortable week for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to also keep in mind the entire population of Greenland is really not that many, 56 or 58,000 people. So,
Yeah, 57,000, size of
yeah.
Cornwall, Ontario.
Yeah, right. Like that's a small city even by Canadian standards. So, and I would assume the majority of those people probably do live in one population center. I can't even name the whatever the largest town would be on in Greenland. So,
Well, where there's going to be trouble is the Danes are talking. They want to talk. It's
like
the
they want to
people.
negotiate. They're like, "Here, take it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
yours." Get
It's the
rid.
it's people of Greenland who want their own independence. So you know,
Right.
you have your parent country, if that's what you want to call it, saying that okay, we'll talk to you. You just imagine being an orphan people. Like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make light of it. You know, so I don't know. There are more and more. It's more being speculated more and more that these things will kind of die down. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always thought it made sense too. And Harper squashed the first step to that. By the way,
I always thought Alaska should be part of Canada. So
hmm.
I never really thought about Greenland because it's just over there doing its own thing.
Yeah, they wanted to adopt the loonie, right?
What Greenland did?
Yep. Harper
They
said
want
no.
they wanted Canadian currency. I
Yeah.
would assume they used the euro though. If they're part of Denmark, you would think would have the euro. The euro is a lot more valuable than the Canadian dollar.
Oh, this was like I said. I don't know. It was the Harper days.
Yeah,
The
back when the
dollar.
Canadian dollar was worth something.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, I think we're going to see, he's saying right in his inauguration speech, this is the president of the United States. He's getting on drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
You know, forever to be documented in that speech, in that, yeah, in the historical records, man, I don't,
Dri-
you know, don't know what to tell you, Dave.
Drill, baby, drill. I don't know either. Like it is going to be an interesting 4 years. You know, here's another thing. I know you've heard me say it before, and I just kind of want to bring it up. Trump's first go around, he he honestly, obviously didn't know what he was doing. He had no political experience prior. He surrounded himself with people who he thought were good people. Obviously, his daughter and son-in-law are good people. Ivanka and Jared, but they had no idea what they were doing either. And I feel like this time around, he is surrounding himself with people that do know what they're doing. He's kind of learned from that mistake. Do you think that's a fair assumption?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a completely fair assumption. I mean, you'd be in the same boat. Like if you had already done the job and then you had 4 years to kind of think about that four
Right.
years,
Yeah, yeah.
and then that same opportunity was there for you again, would you actually have the opportunity to do if I could have done something differently, I would have done this or would have done that. So
You basically are getting a do-over. It's a mulligan.
yeah, yeah. And Donald Trump, you know, he, he really recognizes that. I think like he's turning this, and maybe the Liberal Party could look at, Donald Trump's not afraid to put things on their head here.
When you say the Liberal, you mean the Liberal Party of Canada?
Yeah, Liberal Party of Canada should be looking at what's going on down in the state and saying, not be like Trump, but okay, how do we generate excitement around our message?
Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah, another great point from Candace here. Most of the oil they are drilling produce light crude, and most of their refineries are geared to heavy crude, which Alberta has in abundance. He needs us big time. So the reason I think this is a great point is because just what was that about 2 weeks ago or so when Trump was like, "We don't need Canada. We don't need their oil. We don't need their lumber. We don't need this. We don't need that." And then, like literally the next day, when the California wildfires were blazing out of control, he was like, 5 years ago, I had it in place to have, you know, water from the north from Canada. So it's like, actually, Donald, the US does need Canada. Does Canada need the US? Obviously, of course. Do we rely on each other? Obviously, right? Like it's geographically it makes sense, economically it makes sense, the partnership makes sense. But for Trump to say we don't need anything from Canada, we can do it all ourselves. This is just a prime example of yeah, go right ahead and drill, baby, drill, but you're not going to get the right type of oil that you actually need. So we need each other.
Well, I think that's the way to look at it. Yeah, we need each other. And I mean, to have the conversation with the United States, like, okay, is the problem that we're not buying enough stuff from you? Okay, well, tell us what you want us to buy. And then, or
Yeah.
Or is the question, okay, you want to buy less of this from us?
Well, Trump just
Okay.
sees the word deficit because okay, first of all, as you know, I really dislike him calling it a subsidy because it's not. It's a trade deficit that the U.S. has. Therefore, Canada has a trade surplus. And Trump dislikes the idea of the word deficit because in his eyes that means America is losing. Now, are they actually losing? Not really. But so yeah, I hear what you're saying is like what can we buy more of or what can you buy less
Yeah.
of and we
Okay.
can switch this around. And you can have the trade surplus. Sure, that's fine because that's just the way it works in the global economy is like some countries will sell more to other countries and other will sell less to other countries. So it's just like
If you think about it, it's not that crazy. Like the what they're asking for. Okay, you need us to tighten up. You need us to tighten up the border. Okay, we can do
yeah,
that. We like no problem. All right. You need to either buy less from us or we need to buy more from you. So let's figure
uh,
that out. Right. But you know,
yeah,
what's
stop
the
calling it a subsidy because it's not.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
does
Um,
the German chancellor say, "Oh, well England sells us more, so we have like right? Like that's just not the way it works. It's just not like
and you and I have known forever. We've all known it's part of our national identity. This whole United States Big Brother thing. Everyone's known for years that that if anyone touches Canada, the United States is going to annihilate them.
yeah.
Right. So then we ease off on our defense spending. Right. To a point where now our big brother is saying you need to fight for
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah.
and if you look at it just through the lens of a common, a non like a in a non-harmful way. I mean, we're neighbors, we're friends, but I can see where some Americans might think that way of
Well, that goes
Canada.
back to that Danielle Smith post that I read where, number 4 or 5 on that list was, increase the NATO spending to that 2% GDP, which it does need to be. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. And you're right. At some point, the little brother Canada does need to sort of grow up and like you said, fight for ourselves. Um, there was was it Danielle Smith also like a week or so ago when she was down at Mar-a-Lago and she came back and was basically like, listen, okay, so to take away the big brother analogy, but it's like Canada and the US are married. We've been married for 200 years. We're not dating anymore. Right? It was like this is a marriage. In a marriage you have to work together. You have to support each other. You have to communicate with each other. And I thought that was a good analogy as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Trump's coming off an era of the Canadian government under Trudeau where they poked at him and antagonized him and made fun of him. And everyone knows Donald Trump takes things personally, right?
China, Mexico, Vietnam, Germany, and Japan have larger trade deficits than Canada, meaning with the U.S. I think that's what Candace means.
Yeah, obviously. And we're talking about that's the one where
that's the top. That's today's topic, Dave. Keep up. You made the thumbnail. Yeah, so that's interesting.
Always good to ground ourselves.
Yeah. No, but that's interesting too. Like several other countries, it's not just Canada, and it's because the U.S. is such a massive, massive, massive consumer. They're like simply
yeah. It's like how can you? Yeah. It's huge. I mean, but make no mistake, the impact we can have on the United States is not even close to what's going to be felt in Canada.
Right.
Not even close.
No.
So
you're saying
I'm somewhat optimistic. I really am.
Yeah. I figured it out. I figured it out, Candace. Thank you. Oh, that's awesome.
I'm not I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but I'm optimist. I'm at least somewhat relieved that it didn't come out of his office today. First order of business, like he had threatened.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
And you're right. If you want to kick that can down the road, we can talk about it. But that's where I'm hoping that we have that improved diplomatic relationship that Danielle Smith has been working so hard at. And I can see, as you know, I'm a big fan of both Danielle and Doug Ford, and I can see them working together to further that diplomatic relationship while our federal government is basically sidelined because a prorogued parliament, a liberal leadership fiasco, or whatever, however you want to word that, and eventually an election somewhere down the road. But I think we would be a lot better off. I know that what I'm about to say, we'd be a lot better off the sooner we have an election to deal to have our new administration deal with the new Trump administration. Hey, thanks for joining us, Candace. Enjoy your supper, and we'll see you again soon. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining the chat.
Yeah. I think we're just in for a really tumultuous. You asked about what I'm, looking forward from now is that I see cautiously optimistic with tentativeness.
Yeah.
Like it can go either way, and I still think Doug Ford's the guy to spearhead the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
If
if either Doug Ford or Danielle Smith could learn French to the point that is acceptable at the federal level, I think either one of them would make a great prime minister. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
I think it might be getting to the point where you can go into the people of Quebec and say, look, okay, we understand the culture is important, but this is not a normal time. We'll get right back to that after this.
Yeah.
There'll be a French, yeah, but come on.
Yeah. We
We,
we need to put
right
somebody
now
in
we got
there.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, right now we need someone who is going to pull us through this. Someone like Doug Ford or Danielle Smith, or
Right.
you know, but
And not to get, say Polyev isn't going to do a good job, because I think he will as well. Um, I just feel that it would have been a lot better to have Polyev elected this month in January or February, and then he would have basically the same 4 years that Trump has to work hand in hand for that term, right?
I saw an interesting perspective because if you think about it, um, do you think Donald Trump wants any part of 6 million Quebecers?
No, no.
Like, let me tell you, Donald, it's different.
It's yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go out in left field here with this one. Let's think 4 years down the road. This is obviously Donald Trump's second and last term as the U.S. president. In 4 years, will the U.S. begin to swing back a little bit to the left or center that would lean them towards the Democrats, or do you see another Republican candidate in 4 years? And I'm not even going to ask you who that candidate might be, because in 4 years' time, who knows? I just kind of want to get your thoughts on the overall sentiment of what you think of the political landscape in the US and even in Canada over this next 4 years, right?
Well, I think in the United States, if the political structure doesn't crumble and the political structure still allows for a pendulum style fluid cycle, it has no choice but to come back, right? It now that's if the system as we understand it does not crumble beneath it, right? If the
Right.
pendulum no longer exists, then what you have is a single party scenario. So the really far left people out there, or what far out there people will say, well, this is a move toward a different style of governing, right?
Hmm.
We heard all kinds of words associated with that style of governing during the election process.
Yeah, well, a one party system is
Yeah,
basically communism,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's where some people think this is all going at the end of the day. What do they call it? The Blue Book 24 or something.
I'm not sure what you're talking
And
about.
anyway, um, now, so I think if the pendulum continues to swing, his population, his popularity will never be this high again. We already kind of discussed on that, right? So it has no choice but to
Yeah.
come back, right? I think so. To answer your question, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know which it's gonna. I don't know if. I don't know. I don't know.
So here I'm going to give you my quick thoughts on it, um, before your potato camera completely conks out, because I see you're getting some weird stuff going
Yeah.
on. I'm not sure if you can see
For
that
some
there.
reason, there's a Love Logistics logo behind me.
Yeah, I see that. Well, advertising for the other business. Okay, so my thoughts are for both the Democrats in the US and the Liberal Party in Canada is for them to gain back any traction or momentum, they need to move back towards this. Both parties have gone so far left that that they've just literally offended the majority of people. Like literally the majority of people have taken offense to their stance, right? And they just need to come back closer to center. And again, you've heard me say it before about both the Democrats in the US and the liberals in Canada is like they were trying to tell people what they need as opposed to listening to what people want. And in a democracy, you need to listen to what people want. So I
Yeah.
believe that's for both Canada and the US, Democrats and Liberals. They just need to listen to what the people want and come back closer to the center of the spectrum. Now, with that said, because you know, in the US, the Republican Party, like you said, the Trump is at an all-time high for popularity, and therefore by default, so is the Republican Party. So in 4 years, will that, you know, popularity and appreciation still be that high or high enough to get them reelected? It's entirely possible. Would it be someone like the JD Vance? You know, where we've seen that in the past, where way back in the 80s when it went from Ronald Reagan to Vice President George Bush Sr. to President George Bush Sr. So, I mean, that could be one scenario that plays out. And then kind of same thing in Canada with Pierre Poilievre, whereas Canada tends to have that more 8 to 10 year cycle where it's like, okay, we'll swing to the right for 8 to 10 years, then back to the left for 8 to 10 years. But these past 10 years with Trudeau's just gone so far to the left that it's like, okay, like I said, they've literally just offended everyone. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, totally. Totally out of touch with uh again what's going on, and you know, it got me to thinking. I was driving on the 401 the other day, and I'm like, when's the last time Justin Trudeau drove on the 401, do you think? You know? And
Drove
I know it
himself?
sounds, yeah, himself, right? Like, when's the last time he got to experience what everyday life is like for everyone out here? And he just seems for some reason, not just his policies, but just his behavior. You know how he would lecture people on the words that they're using. He
Yeah.
lectured that one poor girl right in the front of an auditorium about, you know,
People
mankind
kind, man. Yeah, oh, man.
versus people. And I was like, I don't want to live here.
Nobody needs to hear that,
Yeah,
JT.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like,
she's the one that said the word mankind, and she, being a woman,
yeah,
obviously was not offended by the term mankind, right? Like,
I said it. Yeah, it's my words.
yeah.
So anyway, I think I had better either log out and sign back in, or
Well, I think we've had a pretty good chat. I see we're already pushing. We're getting close to an hour. It's been good. We've had some discussion in the chat too. Thank you so much for Candace for showing up and adding to the conversation. But Sammy, we will. I think we'll end this live stream and pick it up again soon. I know we have a few other topics that we want to discuss, being the chief political correspondent here on the Passive Income and Political podcast. So, just with that said, I see.
we're tracking the story.
Yeah. I just want to point out that we've surpassed Mark Carney's. What was a Facebook Live? He had 62 viewers, and we've greatly surpassed that. And I'm assuming that we've also, our combined numbers of X and YouTube, we've probably surpassed Chrystia Freeland's 98 as well. So, so hey, man, we're doing
Dave.
better than they are. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on and co-hosting the political segment with me, and we'll see everyone again soon.